You're listening to Truth Talk, real talk, real faith. Each week, we take on some of the biggest questions and challenges facing Christians today. We'll unpack mysteries from the Bible, examine how they relate to historical discoveries, and connect everything to what's happening right now. Stick with us as we journey through biblical history, connect our faith to the world around us, and address the questions that matter most.
Hello, and welcome back to Truth Talk, real faith. Whew. Remember that one.
Take a week off and
you forget everything. I had to double check what our email address is and everything. So welcome back. We did have a week off last week. We were very busy, had lots of activities going on, lots of things in our personal lives, and we just weren't prepared to record a podcast last week. So we made the executive decision to not, instead of flounder through something, to not do so. So we are back with this week's interesting information. So we're going to jump right into it. Well, I'm Mandy.
And I'm Bruce.
We're here with Dale, producer extraordinaire, keeping us straight, even if you forgot to put my helps up today. So I didn't know what day it was or what the name of our show is, but okay, I digress. We're going to go. This was really interesting. So I really couldn't come up with anything. The news cycle is still just obsessed with the shutdown and the effects of the shutdown and da-da-da-da-da. And there's only so much shutdown talk you can do, you know. Yeah. So I'm just...
They're back to work. So.
I forget what it was that I kept hearing them talk about on AFR, but they would talk about, tariff talk. They did tariff talk for like 2 or 3 weeks. They'd come back and they were like, well, back to tariff talk, you know, and everything. So I just I'm over shutdown talk. So, but Dad did come up with a really interesting concept because last week the U.S. Mint produced its last penny. So sad. And I really, there's a lot that you can...
But there are 600 trillion pennies out there.
That's right. Like, it's going to take a minute. That's what I was talking to somebody, whatever day that happened on the news and the next day at work, and they're like, it's kind of sad. I was like, y'all, it's going to take like 50 years for the pennies to like move out of circulation as people use them. I said, and they said like a good portion of the pennies in quote unquote circulation are not being used. Right. They're sitting in collection jars, people collecting their pennies and and whatever people do, because I don't use pennies, quite frankly. Typically, if somebody tries to give me pennies back, I'm like, just keep it. Which is why the decision was made to stop producing pennies. Also, it takes $3.07 to produce a penny.
No. It's 3.8 cents to produce 1 cent.
Okay, so
4 cents.
How was that different from $3.07?
To produce a penny?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, same difference. A penny is 1 cent.
Yeah.
And so you said it's 3.08?
No, it's 3 cents. Just.
Oh, okay, guys. That's not $3. Gotcha. I heard that was more than that. I heard something else, but that's fine. He's got all his paperwork today. So, however, you're spending more to create the cent than the cent is worth.
Yes.
So
last year we were in a deficit of $85 million in penny production versus penny value.
Wow.
Yeah. So that 3.8 cent over a lot of pennies.
6 billion pennies or whatever it is. And, it's a lot. I mean, and I know there's a lot of stuff we're getting into about this, but I personally think it's wise. But however, it's a slippery slope. So you want to start out with the information you found out about?
Right. First of all, it's not a penny. It's a cent. We call it a penny. That's our colloquial name, but its official name is 1 cent. And, of course, if you pull a penny out, if you got one, and you'll look, it'll be stamped 1 cent.
I've always just, that's its value.
Right.
It's got a nickname of a penny.
Right.
But the value is a cent.
Actually, in the U.S. Mint, it is called 1 cent. Mm-hmm. And it gets that name from our British friends from when we were part of Britain. And at that time, and maybe even now, they had a penny, not a pence. A pence is a denomination of coins. It can be any particular coin. As a matter of fact, for up until the middle 1800s, we actually had a half cent. So, and then the half cent was done away with. So this is not the first time some type of currency's been done away with. So the half cent was done away. Can you imagine that? Woke up today and say, "Oh, well, I got a half cent." You know, but
you ain't got nothing then.
You know how,
and that is derived from the British penny and halfpenny.
Yeah.
You know, which was very. If you've ever listened to any
songs or
carols or any, I'm trying to think of what that song was we were singing. If you haven't got a halfpenny, then God bless you. What's the name of that song? Man, you're gonna have to look that up for us, Dale, while we're talking about this.
Yeah,
I've done taking us down the road.
Yeah, we better go. It said in 2021, the U.S. Mint produced 7.6 billion pennies in just that year in 2021.
Wow.
So,
I mean, you look at our debt. You know, you look at what we're spending money on that doesn't have a return. You know, and looking at quick ways to save the government money just by not producing the penny anymore, not producing a cent anymore. I wonder, it's a good thing 50 cent wasn't 50 pennies.
Yeah.
He'd have to change his stage name and everything.
Yeah, he'd be in trouble, wouldn't he? The first.
Hey, hold on. Dale's got my answer for me.
Yeah, so it's called Christmas is Coming.
Yeah,
and
the goose is getting fat.
Yep, the lyrics in there, if you haven't got a penny,
a halfpenny.
Halfpenny, yeah, will do. Yep. If you
haven't
got a half a penny, God bless you.
That's right. Yeah, that's good old Christmas standard there. But that's where we get those derivatives of some of our coinage.
Yep,
it comes straight from that. Now, our paper money didn't kind of keep the same names. But.
Yeah, originally, and we don't need to go down this road too far, originally almost every state printed its own currency. And so you would have all types of coinage and all types of paper denominations out there until they finally standardized it under one. And that took quite some time. The penny was originally, the first penny was minted in 1793, was the first one.
Wow. So we were well into our country's founding before
20 years before we actually had a penny. And it had the head of a allegorical woman with flowing hair to symbolize liberty. And on the other side, the back side, it had 15 chain links meant to symbolize the unity of the state. So by that time, there must have been 15 states by the time we did that. So I've had several changes and different types of pennies, and that's what's going to happen. Collectors will wind up with most of the pennies.
So save your pennies now.
Yeah, well, I've been saving my pennies for years.
50 years, they'll be worth 2 pennies. Or 2 cents.
Maybe. And again, I'm not going to get into it, but they've been made, we call them copper pennies, but they're
not really
always
copper.
Been made copper. And there was a year, I don't remember looking at it, that we didn't make a penny that year because there was a copper shortage because of the war that was going on. So
that was that World War I?
I was trying to look here, all this information, it's in here. But I
do remember reading that before in some history book or something that they used.
Let me see if I can.
It was in 1943.
World War II then.
Dale's.
Look at that's why he's the executive producer, because he's like steadily typing as fast as he can back there.
Yeah.
So some of the things that we as biblical citizens, we maybe though look at this. Now it's kind of fun to talk about it like this, but there are some things that we need to be cognizant of as we see our money change, as we see what the government can do. I mean, if you look, we talked a little bit about this, but like Canada has removed some of their coins from their currency. They're very heavily, and we're about to get on this, very heavily reliant on digital currency.
Yep. And before we jump too far there, I just print out some fun facts about pennies.
Get it.
Yep. Ben Franklin designed our first penny. He started it in 1887, so 1787, so it took a few years to get it minted. And it had "Mind Your Own Business" on it with 13 links. His original one.
Like old Ben, mind your business.
That's right. And then he also coined the phrase, "A penny saved is a penny earned."
Yep.
It comes from
him.
he
called it a penny.
Yep.
He didn't call it a cent.
Yep, that's right. Teddy Roosevelt introduced the Lincoln cent, the penny that we have the Lincoln head on. Right now, the reason they're not being minted is the president has an executive order and has told the Treasury not to make any more. It has not yet been placed into law. It will have to have go through Congress to have a congressional thing.
I don't see Congress not doing any. I mean, I really don't see them not moving forward with that. I mean, why would you hit
they have this is
other
not
than
new.
TDS?
Yeah, it started in the 80s
Right.
to do away with the penny, so it's been at work. During World War II, we talked about pennies were made out of steel rather than out of copper.
Makes sense.
And was not cast in 1943, so that's the reason they got. And right now, on all U.S. military bases, the penny has been abolished, done away with. I'm sorry, Dale.
If y'all heard anything, that was
Yeah.
Dad forcefully hit the table here.
Abolished.
I'm gonna give him a gavel.
That's right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
So if you work for the U.S. military, can't be using a cent on base.
yes, the cent is gone. That makes no sense. And so
So what we were saying about, moving this is in the broader scheme of things, it could be considered the move towards digital currency. Are you keeping time on us, Dale? Do you have any idea how long we've talked about this? Make sure we stay. Okay, we'll just talk this until we feel like we're done with it. But this move toward digital currency is something we should be aware of, knowledgeable about. I personally don't have a problem with the penny thing, but it is something you need to be aware of. I do. Like, a lot of people don't use pennies. So
the research
it
showed
makes
that
sense.
most folks do not.
So it makes sense to move something out of circulation that is costing more and not adding value.
Yeah, right.
So that makes sense. But, the move to digital currency, now, and I'm bad. Like, I use my debit card all the time. I use Venmo all the time. So it is something.
I use Venmo.
I know. That devil money.
That was like Brother Charlie told me something last night. Said he was Googling something, and I said, "The world is certainly coming to end." Brother Charlie is now Googling the.
He's learned how to Google.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this is because when you become dependent on digital currency, you become dependent on your government.
Right.
Because if you remember back during COVID, and they were in Canada specifically, they were trying to enforce some COVID regulations, and it was killing the trucking industry. Mm-hmm. And so the truckers went on strike, and they were trying. There was a lot of crowdfunding going on to try to help them. And the Canadian government, there's a couple of big leaders of the trucking of this movement, and the Canadian government seized their bank accounts and froze their accounts. Yeah, so they could not access their legal money.
When you can't hold it, you cannot hold a digital dollar. Mm-hmm. You can't take it home and put it in the box. You can't bury it proverbially in the backyard. Mm-hmm. It is simply digits.
Right.
Is all that it is.
Money is an abstract thing anyway. What the value we give to a piece of paper is what it is. Is what we assign to it. However, there is some reality-driven standards when you have your money. Yeah. Like you can. I will say this is part, and I was listening, now that you kind of bring all this up, I was listening to a podcast.
You brought this up, I did.
Podcast a couple of days ago, maybe it was sometime last week, and they were like, this move, and they were concerned with the penny issue, and this has been happening since the 60s that we moved away from the gold standard. Yes. And so like as soon as we moved away from the gold standard, it's been a slippery slope of governmental monetary interference, basically, was the outtake I got from that conversation.
Yeah, it has caused great problems. And the big picture of things, does moving from the penny away, does that mean we're at the end times? And no. But in the big picture of things, as we see the digital world increase and the cryptocurrencies and all these things, all put together certainly lend to the atmosphere that
Right.
things are changing.
If you think of God's plan as like a big chessboard, you see the pieces moving, and like your knight and your bishop and your queen, everything's aligning for those strikes to happen. So
When will that happen? We don't know, but it certainly makes sense. No pun intended. For
man, this has been a great subject.
yeah, we might all move along pretty soon. And
So, we don't want to just bring the dull and dreary and the depressing stuff during our current event topic all the time. We want to, there are interesting things going on that we do need to be aware of, but they can be fun topics too, and things that provide some thought, for us. So, it's really, man, I wish we had like a good song that we could like outro this to, and everything. I'm giving Dale some ideas over here because it was interesting, kind of.
penny for your thoughts.
Yeah, doing so much of our language, he doesn't give a single red cent, or
right.
anything like. There's just a ton of our language. If it goes away, people lose context for what those things mean.
And again, that's why reading your Bible, we read about things that in the day they were written, that context made real good sense. And today if you're not careful, you don't say the same thing the Bible said because you're not in the context.
That's right.
Like when pennies go away and little Lord tarries, and 100 years from now somebody says a penny for your thoughts, you'll look at them and say, huh?
And it just doesn't have cent for your thoughts. Just doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, we better go ahead and put a period on the end of this penny sentence. So
Stamp it out.
that's right. So in the archaeological news, once again, you have to be very careful with archaeological news because again, we've talked about this before. I don't know that I guess maybe it was the first podcast of this one. Like, archaeology is a relatively new science. It's only been, a lot of our sciences, while have new features, they're kind of old and have been around for a while.
Practice has been
different. The practice has been whether the being able to confirm thoughts, and things like that. But archaeology and the activity around that and how you dig up old things, basically. I listen to a few archaeologists and they I'm just a digger, and everything. And I love playing in the dirt. I love getting down in there and seeing what I can learn. But you do have to be very careful, and sift through things. We are full of puns tonight. And make sure that you don't get caught up in something that sounds flashy. And so Dale brought us, Dale's more than just the workhorse behind the computer.
Yep.
He brought us our topic for this week because in the news last week, was it last week or the week before?
It was on Yahoo News. I saw it on.
It was on NBC.
NBC News. Yeah, I saw it on several places.
I think Newsweek, but about this big find, this huge archaeological find of Noah's Ark in this area in Turkey around Mount Ararat.
You would think they had the boat out in the water sailing it.
I know. And the minute Dale told me about it, I was like,
Flag goes up.
I was like, they found Noah's Ark. After all these years, we have found Noah's Ark, which something could be found after all these years. So that's not really it. But I feel like something the size of the ark with anything demonstrable able to show would have come up before now.
I have a feeling that much of the ark was used by Noah and his sons in building and used that in their start in a new world.
They didn't just sit there
that would have been a very useful resource to get wood to build a house or to build a smaller boat to use now or to make an altar. That was a resource for them handy when it was just them. So.
And they were able to, God blessed them, they were fruitful, multiplied. They would need the wood, this wonderful gopher wood that God provided, would be needed to do things. So first of all, they were going to have to create. Some of those animals were livestock.
Yep.
So they're going to have to create ways to keep the livestock so they didn't just roam everywhere. Yep. Some of those animals were going to roam the earth again, which we really need to do a Noah's Ark episode because I have lots of thoughts. Yep. And so Dale's like, next week's topic. I do, just like as we're free flowing here, I just think, well, if they were all, how did animals get over to South America? If they were all on the ark, and I just like, did they boat over by themselves? But then how did people get over South America? So, but you think about all these animals that were quote unquote like wild animals by that time that had to be taken on the ark, and it wasn't every single animal. And I know all this stuff.
But you think about it. They say the flood's what caused Pangea to break.
That's right.
So maybe it was all one continent, and then
I know. So how did they get there? And anyway, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother conversation. But we say all this to say, be very careful with your news source and what you say, because you went and did a little digging
I tried
on
to do
this press release,
some verification of it, and it's a big fundraising project behind it. It is not a normal research, archaeological research. It's folks trying to make a name for themselves. They're using ground-penetrating radar in the area of Ararat. Now, Ararat is not a mountain.
Right.
It is a mountain range. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes when we say they landed on Mount Ararat, we think it's a particular mountain, but the Ararat mountain range is what's being talked about there. And so they've used ground penetrating radar, and they see under the ground, and I forget what the depth was, an image that they are believing looks like what they think Noah's Ark would have looked like.
The impression.
They haven't gotten any wood out. They hadn't got any archaeological digging or anything like that. It's just they've decided this is Noah's Ark, and we was talking beforehand. I read an expose on it by some of the researchers over there that are really meticulous. They won't post any of their research till it's been double peer reviewed and all of those type things. And they are really skeptical of the method and means that's taking place.
Well, it looks like, reading some of this stuff, it looks like they made this finding based on some supposition by other thinkers, basically.
Right. Yeah. You don't ever go to a site and say, this is what I'm going to find, let me dig for it. Mm-hmm. That is the reverse. You go and dig and say, this is what I found then, and work from that. If you go with that presupposition, well, here's Noah's Ark, well, you're going to make everything work out to be Noah's Ark, whether it is or it isn't.
I love how this says, ground-penetrating radar analysis has revealed a chemical imprint. So if we don't have anything, in the shape of a hull, like what? I mean...
Yeah, they say there's nothing there except the chemical imprint of what the ship had left.
Yeah. But again, you have to really apply, and we need to be careful as Christians. Don't just jump on it because it looks like it might affirm a belief.
Because that shows we have a shaky belief.
That's right. You should be you should apply some logic and think, chemical imprints. And like you said, what would they have done with that ship once they moved out of it? And it makes sense that you would dismantle it to use it for your, you're not going to have trees for a while because the earth's been flooded. Right. So we're going to need some kindling, all this for whatever, whether they had houses or lived in tents or whatnot is right. You're going to need wood because people needed wood anyway to just for everyday living for different reasons.
Before you had a tree big enough to...
I mean, those the world did not come back as the Garden of Eden was formed. It had to grow back from this devastating event, from this catastrophic event. So they were going to have to use this wood that God provided for a while, and that just shows you the beauty of God's provision when you think about it too. Of like, hey, not only am I providing you the way to be saved, but I'm also going to provide you with what you're going to need once the catastrophe is over until the earth recovers from this this punishment that's been bestowed.
He wasn't going to rain manna from on high.
That's
He was
right.
going to take a natural process, which brought us to the thought process of looking at what true archaeology really is.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it appears like we're just saying, well, only religious folks are digging around over there, but that's not true. The majority of the work being done is by large universities, large foundations, and sometimes governments, and it's worldwide.
Right.
You've got folks from France, from England, from Germany, from Japan. Japan has a big influence that is doing a lot of the archaeological digging. So
Definitely from a secular standpoint, not necessarily trying to establish anything biblical oriented.
as a matter of fact, they do everything they can if they find something to say, this is not proof of anything. So I looked at 5 recent archaeological results that we've had from around 2022. So we're talking about this decade that it was found in, and this is by just different institutions that are out there working. The first one I found was they found sarcophagi and statues in the Saqqara, Egypt. That is the place where the oldest pyramids are. Pyramids that date back, they say, to about 4,700 years ago, which would have been about 2,000 years before the birth of Christ, something like that. And they find all kinds of interesting information and their belief in gods as they have those pictured on their sarcophagi and on the statues that they have there. It says they had several of the different successive Egyptian dynasties that they could see during that period of time. And this is in the greater Cairo areas, or as us folks in South Georgia say, Cairo.
I don't think Cairo's in Egypt.
Yeah, I don't think so. So that is one that we look at, and that's folks that are over there digging.
And I think we kind of take all of our archaeology fun stuff for granted, like Indiana Jones, all this kind of stuff, and we see these images of these pyramids and everything. It is miraculous that any of these Sphinx, pyramids, anything like that are still around because of the effects of the climate on those marvel that architectural marvels and everything. There's a constant wind and heat on those things that are eroding.
Right.
And
they won't last forever.
They won't, and they have to do a lot of work nowadays to shore up those things. So it's amazing that there's still stuff like that to find.
Which, from a Christian point of view, we look and say, well, we have folks tell us that we were cavemen, Cro-Magnon men, small brains, hunter-gatherers. But when you look at these civilizations, they were advanced.
Daddy, that was millions and millions of years ago.
Yeah. Well, actually, farthest back I read they ever talk about, for man, is about 50,000 years. And so we show very advanced civilization. Right. The second thing that they found over in Iraq, in the Tigris River Valley, they have had drought, and the Tigris River is way down, and they've uncovered a city that had been drowned, flooded, and ceased to exist. This happened somewhere about 1,500 years before the birth of Christ. They say BCE, but I say before the birth of Christ. And it shows that this city was there, and it was
so can fire and brimstone rain from the sky and burn a city to the ground? Yeah. Well, if one can be flooded, and yes, this whole city can be destroyed.
And that was in about a 500-year period that both those events have happened. And this was not a small village. It was a huge city, large buildings. They say it was a lost city of some name I can't say that they think that it might have been.
And he can't say it means he can't pronounce it. Some name he can't pronounce.
Yeah, I could try, but it's...
No, let's not do that.
A third one here, they found carvings that they say, and again, dating is dating. Remember, they say it was about 9,000-year-old stone carvings. These were some French and Jordanian folks that found it, and they had the rudimentary elements of a spiritual, religious culture. So the earliest stone carvings we find showing that man was a religious being.
And this is important because a lot of the people who want to cast doubt on biblical scholarship will say the people at this time were not smart enough.
They hadn't developed
They didn't have, they just, this is very caveman. There was no language. The Egyptians were very advanced, but these tribal people had no written language, blah, 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 blah. Well, here you have some non-biblical tribal people that have basic writing implements and basic languages and everything that are in written form. And it's one thing to be able to talk. It's another thing to have your written form. So all this does for me is give that understanding of, hey, yep, could have happened just the way the Bible said, because here it is. And
they find around these bones of animals, which are indicating they were actually to the place of doing sacrificial, meaning something else had to pay for my sins. Mm-hmm. Where did they get that idea from?
Right.
And so you have to, those questions are there, and it's to look and see. Now, they're not saying that, but I'm saying it, and that. I missed one there I wanted to say, the fun one. It says they found a 4,000-year-old board game in Amman, Jordan. And this board game had marked fields, cup holes, and was used to play the different kinds of games that they had there. It was early form of Jeopardy. And again, this idea that early man did not have any ideas, here he was already inventing a system of having fun, having games, doing those things. Finally, they found a cemetery dated in Gaza. That's the world that
we are tearing up the equipment tonight.
Yeah.
Our hands are moving. We're hitting everything.
The war, all the war and all that's going on, and a cemetery that dates to the time of Christ, and it's showing where the nobility, the Roman higher level folks were buried there. Again, giving credence to the story the Bible gives us that there was a high-level Roman influence.
Yes.
We were just not a little outpost tributary. Israel wasn't, and that the things the Bible says couldn't be true because they wouldn't have been that involved in that faraway land. A little tiny piece over there.
Right. I think what's important for us to realize with these types of findings is there has never been an archaeological discovery that contradicts the Bible.
Correct.
So what we're able to use that is to say, yes, that's great information to have. There's all kinds of things that have been found that contradict science.
Yes.
That contradicts what man's knowledge is. But there's never been an archaeological discovery that contradicts what the Bible says happened at that time. And I think, okay, there's your source of truth.
Yep.
But people just are blind. They're not willing to see it. They harden their heart to those things. And don't want to listen to it. It's super interesting once you start digging into it.
Yep. It has a good value.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last thing to cover for today's episode is our hard question. And, this time of year we tell the Christmas story. We talk about the baby Jesus. As we go from now through Easter, you'll hear all kinds of stories about, really you don't hear too many stories about Jesus growing up. You hear about them fleeing to Egypt to be removed from Herod's decree, as we'll say, to kill all the Jewish boys under a certain age, and everything. So they flee to Egypt for a while. And then you hear about their first pilgrimage to Jerusalem and Jesus teaching in the temple and all that at 12. Right. And really, you just have little snippets of Jesus's life. And so Dad thought that, this would be something good for us to discuss and think about. And it's like, Jesus is God. He's part of the Godhead.
Yes.
We can't explain it. There's some things we just have to take on faith and understand that. I hear people try to explain it one way, but that's a very human way to explain it. Like I'm a dad, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and I'm also a friend.
That makes God only one being,
yes,
rather than a three-part singular being,
right? Because I'm all still that one person. Right. I don't have three distinct attributes, and everything. So, but I think that people do it to try to help you understand. But it's really, if you think about it, it's really not what we're going for. Yeah. But He is God. And so surely his knowledge wasn't limited in the way we think of limited. So when would Jesus have realized that he was more than just human, but that he was also God?
Yeah. Well, the unique thing is that Jesus is what we say is fully God and fully man, 100% God, 100% man. So when he came into this world, the hardest concept to understand is that as the second person of the Trinity, he has forever existed in the Godhead. But as Jesus Christ, he came into being. Mm-hmm. There was a day when the man, Jesus, was born, and that was his birthday. That was the first day he as a man existed. He did not exist as a man before then. So that unity happened in the womb by the Holy Spirit of Mary. And and then as a baby, as a man, the Bible says he began to grow and increase in wisdom and knowledge. So that means he had the capacity. As God, certainly he knew everything, but in his bringing himself to the place of being truly man, he only knew what a man would do. So as a baby, he didn't look at Mary and say, this is God laying here, and you better be careful with me. And that wasn't the thoughts that would have been going through baby Jesus. His thoughts would have been goo, 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 cuddle, cuddle, I'm hungry, whatever a baby would be.
Right.
I know.
The natural thoughts.
Thoughts.
Using the natural process of development. Of human growth and
but
development.
Never sinning. But a child, does a child, until he comes to knowing what he's doing, is he sinning? Anyhow, another question altogether. But we know beyond doubt by the time he was 12, he realized that, because he was there in the temple as a 12-year-old teaching the teachers. He was teaching them. So somewhere in that period of time, that growth process had taken place, and he realized. And I can only imagine what that must have been like, because he was having brothers and sisters come along during that period of time, up to 12 and after 12, and they're looking at him. It takes some pretty good chutzpah to look at somebody and say, I am God, so be careful.
And I don't you think reading what we have recorded in the Bible, he didn't go around.
He was humble.
I'm God.
No.
It wasn't until because he tells Mary at the wedding in Cana, and he tells his mother Mary, just to make that clear, at the wedding in Cana, my time has not yet come. Right. So he's still, he's not really addressing who he is as a deity prior to that. He did that. They tell us the story of him being 12 for a reason. Right. But then you don't have any more until
John the Baptist.
Until John the Baptist.
Yep.
So I think that
John the Baptist would be next.
Mm-hmm. And that is when the Holy Spirit came upon him, and did the acknowledgement of who Jesus was. Right. And so I think that we have, it's not like he walked around.
Yeah. No. He said that I hear my Father speak, that I do. So he was learning and obeying the Father as a human, and that's what he. It did us no good for him to come as God.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He had to come as a true human being. And the question that needs to be answered is, where did he learn this? How did he know this? And he learned it, if you listen to him, from the Old Testament. He quotes it over and over. When he comes before the devil, he quotes exactly out of the Deuteronomy. I was reading it in my Bible study here a morning or two ago. Man shall not live by bread alone. Mm-hmm. And the words that comes out of his mouth come out of the Old Testament.
And God used his earthly family to give him that beginning instruction. He didn't, that knowledge didn't just come upon him at 12 and everything. I have to believe that Joseph and Mary were diligent in teaching him the Tanakh, and making sure he understood his heritage and what they believed. Now, they understood to a degree that he was part of this fulfillment and everything.
It was still a mystery, had to have been.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't have raised him with courage and to be the type of person he was if you knew he was going to be a sacrifice. I mean, you kind of had the picture there, especially as we've been talking in church about Abraham and Isaac and everything.
But that's us looking back at
That's
it.
right. Not at the time. That's hindsight. You know, that's having the whole Bible to put everything together for you. They didn't have the advantage of, you know, the New Testament scriptures. And, you know, Joseph and Mary were from humble beginnings.
Right.
Now, I don't think they were dirt poor like a lot of people try to portray them. I mean, Joseph was a skilled tradesman. Right. So he was probably decently able to provide for his family in the context of the time that they were living in. But it's not like they had, more than likely, they didn't have copies of scripture at their fingertips that would have been available at the synagogue or temple, you know, and everything. But you know, the Jewish history has always been a rich oral tradition. Right. And so they were able to provide him. So Joseph and Mary gave the foundation that God then multiplied and enriched and applied wisdom and everything too.
Agreed.
But I did. It's very hard for us to put Jesus in that category of, like, it's hard for us to and as I wonder if it's hard for us because as long as Jesus is God, it's really easy not to obey. Right. It's really easy to make excuses for your behavior and for your shortcomings when you say, but he was God. Well, but he was man. Right.
The Bible says he was tempted, tested, just like we have been. Mm-hmm. So to that degree, he had to have the same type of knowledge that we would have to be tempted and tested like us. So he was a true second Adam, true human being.
Yeah. Very interesting thing. Well, we're so thankful if you got this far that you joined us today. If you have any thing you'd like for us to talk about, if you'd like to join us, if you have something to talk about and you want to join us, we have 2 extra seats in the...
If you can explain cryptocurrency to us,
come on.
Come on.
I can think of a couple of church members that would probably be interested in that. But
if you want to discuss Noah's Ark with us.
I know. That'd be great. Yeah. Y'all let us know. We really...
You may have dug it up. We don't know.
You know, we want people to interact. We want the feedback. We want you to participate in this as much as possible. So reach out to us. You can speak to us at church, either Dale, Dad, or myself, or you can reach out to our email, connect@abcworth.org, connect@abcworth.org. And we've had a good time today. Thanks for joining us on Truth Talk, real faith.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you feel encouraged and equipped. Thank you for joining us as we explored these important topics. We look forward to having you with us again next week